having a baby can just turn your world upside down. You kind of think you're emotionally prepared for it, but then you realize you're not. You have no idea what you're doing. And one of the challenges that we have is we tend to withdraw, stay indoors. It's a mission to go outside, particularly when you're feeling depressed. And that's really the thing that you need. You need to be able to go outside. To me, postnatal depression is a little bit like burnout, because you have that level of fatigue and sometimes you just don't feel like getting through the day. That's why I've invited Penni Cox to come and chat to us about being outdoor, a little bit about maternal mental health, and a whole bunch of other goodies that are going to make you feel so much better. Penni, thank you for being on the show.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Now, you have got quite a career. You worked with the United Nations.
I did.
And for a long time, you were the lead psychologist for almost 2,000 employees.
That's true, yes. I was a staff counselor at the United Nations, and we are posted in different duty stations. And so I had the wonderful privilege of being in New York. And yes, at one stage I was overseeing 2,000, just over 2,000 colleagues, supporting them in their mental health.
Now, what happens is when you're a leader of that kind and you've got to show empathy and compassion to other people, it can actually put a lot of strain on your own mental health. And you had a burnout episode. Tell us about burnout, because sometimes people think of it as like this woo-woo word that's not really real, but it is a real physiological issue. What does burnout look like?
Yeah, burnout is, I think, very misunderstood. And the first thing about burnout is there's so much shame around it that people are so fearful to acknowledge I'm burnt out. They feel like it's a personal failure. So that's the first thing. It's really important. Really what it is, it's this extreme sense of disconnection that overcomes you. It's exhaustion. It's got to do with identity. So there's a whole lot that encompasses burnout. And yes, it's something that needs to be more spoken about and understood, because I always use the analogy, it's like you can have all the skills in the world, but if you're an Olympic swimmer and you dive into that pool and you've been training for all these years for that moment, but you dive into a toxic swimming pool, then you're still going to become unwell. And with burnout, we need to look at the systems that we're in and the environments that we're in and how that's contributing to our health or detrimental to our health.
So when you were dealing with burnout, one of the things that you did is you got out into nature. Why is nature incredibly important for mental health?
Nature is incredibly important for many reasons. There's so much science. I'm so happy now, because in the past it was kind of woo-woo, right? It's like the woo-woo stuff, right? But now the science is catching up, and this is really exciting. We're just seeing more and more evidence about not just the physical benefits, but the mental benefits. So WHO says there's no health without mental health. We got to look at health holistically. When we're doing well physically, our mental health follows, and vice versa. And so going out into nature there's just multiple things. I could just list a million facts, but what's really interesting related to depression and to your audience of postpartum depression perhaps, is that one of the key symptoms in depression is rumination. Ruminating thoughts, these thoughts that go on, and you get stuck and isolated in your internal world. It happens in your prefrontal cortex right over here. One becomes exhausted and frazzled, And they're showing now that taking a 90-minute walk out in nature compared to an urban space dramatically lowers ruminating thoughts. Now that's a very powerful thing, because what happens is that your focused attention, attending to your home or attending to your work or whatever you're having to put so much focus on all the time, you give that part of your brain a break. And what happens, and I love this phrasing, is gentle curiosity. Gentle curiosity, gentle fascination starts to come over you. And when your brain starts to go into that more calm space of gentle fascination, there are immense benefits to how you feel and really quite literally depressive symptoms.
So you have come back to South Africa after being abroad for a while, and you have started a new business. Tell us about it.
Yes. I'm so excited about it. It's right from the heart, and it's right from my experience as both a mental health practitioner, but also, as you mentioned, me finding so much recovery in nature. When I went through a really difficult burnout, I ran to the forests and I ran to the beach. I didn't want to talk. I didn't want to take a whole lot of medicine, even though medicine is good. And I took some antidepressants because that helps. But it was nature that restored me. And when I had this very powerful encounter with nature, I realized that we can do so much better when it comes to mental health. Whether it's in a boardroom, whether it's in a home, wherever you are sitting, mental health is present. It's not an add-on. It's everything, right? It's about our abilities. It's about our ability to serve our community, to work productively, and to cope with stresses. This is a definition of mental health. And so I came back with this passion to combine mental health and nature connection. So I say where mental health and nature play, that's where I operate. And it's called Alive Eco Journeys. And really, I'm trying to address a problem that I'm seeing increasingly become alarming and setting mental health statistics in the wrong direction, and that is isolation. It's apartness, disconnect, numbness, which is just corrosively creeping into our lives, and that of our families, of our teams, of our communities. But, Kim, for me, the problem actually isn't that, because we all know about that, right? We know that as a family, we all sit on our phones and that's not good, right? Or we know that none of us know how to relate after COVID with our coffee connects on Zoom, which is actually exhausting, let's be real. So all these things, we know about it. For me, the problem I want to tackle is the apathy around it. We know about it, but we kind of sinking deeper into it. And so this company is aiming to really draw people back into life. I say we don't retreat, we come alive. The word retreat for me is in the word, we retreat from life and then we go back to life and nothing's changed, right? I'm occupied with us going into nature to rediscover our wild self, to reconnect with nature, to reconnect with authentic community and kind community, so that we're actually impacted to shift in the lives that we're living. And so that's this beautiful business, and we're only getting started, but there's so much magic there. Yeah.
And I think for parents, being able to reconnect, because we are in urban environments, the complex that surrounds us over here has got 1,852 units. Yeah. And we're very blessed for this one that there is a lot of nature around us. But for many people, they're trapped inside. And the challenge with depression is that it is isolating, and sometimes you cause that isolation yourself because you want to retreat. That's your instinct, but wellness is not in that space. Wellness is lugging the pram out, putting the baby into it, and getting out there. And I think that, I was watching someone recently and they were saying that the way that neural pathways work is if you're going into a forested area, the paths that people have walked frequently are the widest and the easiest to go through. But when you're starting out, if you're the first trailblazer that's going to be going out and trying out that new place, there isn't going to be a path that you know. So you have got to push through that to get to see the summit, the sunrise or whatever. And I see that the same as motherhood. Although a lot of people have walked that journey beforehand, you haven't. You've gone from being childless to now having this massive responsibility. And we're not in that space yet that we know how to do that. So that pathway has not been created for us yet. And every step that you take starts building that pathway. But it's not going to feel normal and well walked through until you take the steps. And I think that that's what a lot of parents are challenged with, because they're coming from, particularly high-functioning women, they're coming from a place where they've got everything together, they know how it works, they've got systems and rules and that kind of thing, to now.
Throwing all up.
Absolutely. And you're actually not in control. My daughter was telling me that someone we know is pregnant and she's got this plan. And this is how it's going to work. But then when the baby arrives, that plan is like, okay,
Yeah.
So tell me, from a family perspective, how can being out in nature help to solidify bonds and make life better?
Yeah, these are all such beautiful points. And I absolutely agree with that analogy of the brain. It's exactly how it is. And so if I may just comment on that we need each other, because to forge those pathways is difficult. And so we need accountability and someone that's like on our team. There's just so much evidence that one of the most protective factors around antenatal and postpartum depression, antenatal while you're pregnant, is empathy and support and compassion of others towards you. And so this is where the best thing that you can do even when you fall pregnant is to start working on those social bonds and those very practical mental health skills that by the time you have baby, those pathways are a little bit further ahead, because goodness, now you've got to carve new pathways and you've got a child. This is exhausting.
Yes.
But going out into nature, it certainly opens up relationships. We all just become much calmer. We become less distracted. We start to focus with that curiosity. We become very present to each other. And again, the theme of isolation is very real. And so what we want to do is we want to find any way to combat that isolation. So here's a cool thing to know. Isolation can also be combated by being alone in nature. We don't always need people. Sometimes you're just tired from people. And so just being outside by yourself is a very beautiful thing. This nature connection, looking outwards instead of inwards, is an incredibly healing thing. Yeah.
Now, in terms of support, you mentioned something very interesting to me about a study that in Pakistan on women, that how to work with nurses, that they can help people to get into a better mental health space beforehand. And I think that that's really important, because one of the links that I've noticed in my research is that if people have got early trauma, then their chances of getting depression after they've had a baby really spikes. And sometimes we don't know that because we've buried it from that side. But when we go and we see a doctor or any kind of caregiver, they have a checklist that they check up on you, but very few people ask you if you've had trauma. And when they know that information, how do they apply it? Now, what I found interesting about what you were saying is that the nurses were taught to support from that early stage, and then the psychologists went to speak to the rest of the family members. Explain that, how that worked for us.
Yeah, I think it's a very important point, because what I really want to reiterate is the kind of lifespan of baby being conceived to baby being born and beyond, right? If we can really support mothers from right at the beginning, we're halving their chances of developing postpartum depression. So that's what the statistics is saying. And another, as I mentioned, the protective factor of empathy. When we can train nurses and healthcare professionals in the more softer skills that are really going to meet the woman where she's at with a compassionate ear, we're already doing a lot. There are also, what's really important to know is there's some really great quick tests, quick surveys to do that healthcare professionals can use to really monitor how a woman is doing. But in Pakistan, that's exactly what we discovered. I was supervising a team for a maternal healthcare clinic in very remote Pakistan. And my job was to assess, are the psychologists being the most impactful in the system? And the natural assumption is that the psychologist should be with the woman. And long story short, what we discovered, actually, it was to really upskill the nurses who are really doing a beautiful job of holding space, providing just a witnessing to the woman. And where we could make our best impact was in working with the mother-in-laws and the husbands that were in the waiting rooms, educating them about how to support women or their wives or their daughter-in-laws going through pregnancy, going through early, the first year of having a child. And we started to see a shift in the well-being of the women as a result. And so really, it's just such a reiteration of, the community brings up the child, right? But it is also up to the mother to open herself up to that. Because I think there's a lot of expectations that is placed on one and on yourself that I've got to get through this alone.
Yes.
And we really need to kind of just kill that myth, really, because David White is one of my favorite philosophers, poets, and he talks about invisible help. And he asks the question, what is the invisible help you are walking past today? Bit of isolation lingering inside of me. And when I heard that question, what is the invisible help you are walking past today? It started to heal and soothe me. And by invisible help, I was in New York when I discovered this question. It meant that cherry blossom tree that I was walking past that was inviting me to just sit and breathe for 5 minutes. It was the journal that someone had given me and I'd never written in. It was a friend actually offering practical help and me going, no, don't worry, I don't want to put you out, right? And when I started to ask that question, I suddenly realized how my environment was wanting to rise up and help me. And I think for moms, that's an important reminder. Because if you really start listening, you might hear all these offers of help coming your way, but the question is, will you accept it? Yeah,
I love that. To me, it really resonates with me because I found that many breakthroughs that I've had in life is when I've had the courage to be vulnerable and say, this is what I'm going through. This is the help that I'm needing. So Penni, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. And there you go, moms. Reach out. Get help when you need it, and take a stroll in nature. It's really going to make the best difference to your mental health.